Well, my name is Krønstrom, and I've been living in South America for 8 years.
Right.
And I've been in Brazil the last almost 5 years, and here in São Paulo the last 3 years. So what you say, the institute we are an NGO,
yeah,
and we were founded in 1970.
Right.
So we have 45 years history, and we are the longest still running Institute for Future Studies.
Okay.
And we were founded by a Danish finance minister that was called Krøsntrom. And he was a very interesting guy. He was a finance minister in Denmark, and when he finished being finance minister, he went on to become the general secretary of the OPEC countries. Because we believe that a hub like a mega city like São Paulo is also a place where a lot of new tendencies is coming from and arising from. And that especially today and even more so in the future, all new things will not come from just North America and Europe, as we have seen in the past century. But then we work with mega trends that we know is going to influence the world for at least 10-15 years. So it's very different from like now and here trend reports.
Okay.
For instance, I can mention one of our clients is ISS.
ISS, perfect.
The Danish company, and for them we're doing a lot of projects related to the future of work.
Okay.
And how will facility management be in the future. So for instance, for ISS we have a link, you can download our work for them, that has been published that has been printed more than 17,000 times. So we are helping ISS to envision what is going to be some of the challenges for the future of facility management. Looking at it coldly and from a business perspective, I mean, it's true that right now Brazil is in recession, and probably the recession is going to last a couple of years. But if you think about it, it's the overall economy is shrinking somewhere between 2 to 4%. There's still a lot of industries that are on the rise. A lot of reorganizing of the market is happening, and Brazil has vast, abundant natural resources, and so I believe that just alone because of that fact and a huge inner market, it's a very interesting market for Danish and foreign companies. And then I personally also believe that Brazil is already living under a lot of the configurations that the rest of the world will be living under by the time of 2040, 2050.
Sure.
Like Brazil has a very high degree of urbanization. 85 to 90% of the Brazilian population lives in major cities, that is cities that are larger than 100,000 people. Mm-hmm. And that is a development, that is a rate we are expecting the rest of the world to follow by 2050. Yeah, I think it's very interesting living here as a European and experiencing a crisis in Latin America, because one thing that became very obviously for me is it's extremely psychological. Mm-hmm. It's extremely psychological. Like I think 3-4 months ago, it was like in the time of 2-3 weeks, it was like Brazil just stopped from one day to the other, no? So I think there's a lot of psychology in it. But of course there are some structural major problems. Mm-hmm. And there are some problems with corruption in this country, and the Lava Jato, yeah, and all of that. So I think there will be a couple of years with a lot of bumps, and then I hope Brazil will. I'm confident that due to the resources and also the potential in Brazil, they will get back and start having growth again. I mean, one of the major shifts that we are talking about at the Institute is the shift from product to services. Yeah? And that is a shift that is happening in all industries, not only music and film and TV. It is happening all over the line. And most companies are still operating with the mentality of industrial logic and that we are selling products. And everybody needs to make that shift over to service industry. And it's true that a lot of that there's huge potential for Danish businesses because we already have more efficient solutions. And so here for the Brazilian market, the winners will be the one that adapts the most rapid to the new scenario. And so there will be a lot of need for restructuring and doing things on a more efficient way. So, and then there's many cultural factors about Brazil that I also believe is very interesting. For example, is a good match with the Danish culture. For instance, the jeitinho brasileiro.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of Brazilians you think about malandragem and it's something to have vergonha or something to feel ashamed about. But actually, I think it's an enormous innovation potential in the fact that you have a situation and somehow you without even knowing what you're doing, you say you want to do it, and then you just find a way of solving it.
Yeah. Sure.
And it's a lot, and it's also a country that's a lot more open to process. So, for instance, here it's not so much focus on the end result,
right,
but more as a process. And in the process, you are allowed to go back and correct stuff. Okay. I also think that that's very healthy for innovation. Well, here there's, I think the key, if you want to look to what the future may have in store for education, for instance, is, and also for the healthcare, is especially these, back again to this information technology and network society, that today, you know, even remote areas can have access to very high quality Harvard schools.
Sure.
And that's the same for healthcare. So, and I think one of the interesting thing about the new middle class in Brazil is that when the new middle class is asked, what do they want to, or what are their biggest surprise about the new terms of status in society, that they can actually purchase stuff and have more freedom in terms of that. Actually, very surprisingly, the majority, the thing they mention first is not all the new product they can buy, but it's the access to information. Okay. So I think that there's a thirst for knowledge and for information, and there's also a happiness to have access to this knowledge and information. So I think that there's a lot of things interesting going to happen for the university sector. For instance, we just launched a report on the education sector, that maybe universities might not be the hubs for education of the future, because in a society where knowledge is so abundant and already you can access it from anywhere you want at any time, then maybe education becomes obsolete in some measures. But Brazil, why Brazil? Because I always say, from a personal viewpoint, it's like when you come to Brazil, Brazil is in technicolor. Even though there's a crisis here, people are still more happy than Europe. I think, I mean, I'm also living in Argentina during crisis, and there people was a lot more affected by it. So I think even though there's crisis here, I still think that there's a huge positive spirit to detect. And then again, because the potential of Brazil is completely is not completely realized yet. Not at all, and it's a new country with a lot of potential, and it's a sizzling and interesting and very dynamic country. And São Paulo is a mega hub and a mega city, and things are happening, you know.